The steam rose from the large metal pots in the military base kitchen as Maria wiped the sweat from her forehead. She had been working as a cook for the past 6 months, keeping her head down and staying invisible among the dozens of kitchen staff. The base was located in a remote area, surrounded by mountains and thick forests. Most people here knew her only as the quiet woman who prepared meals and cleaned dishes without complaint. Maria moved efficiently between the stoves, her hands steady as she stirred the evening stew. The kitchen was always busy during dinner preparation, with servers rushing in and out, carrying trays to the dining hall where hundreds of soldiers waited for their meals. She preferred it this way. The chaos gave her perfect cover to blend in and observe everything happening around her. The other kitchen workers had grown comfortable around Maria. They shared gossip about the officers, complained about long shifts, and sometimes asked her opinion about seasoning or cooking techniques. She always gave helpful advice with a gentle smile, never revealing that she had learned these skills in some of the finest restaurants across 3 different countries. General Harrison was known throughout the base as a man who demanded absolute obedience. His voice could be heard echoing through the corridors when he was displeased, and even senior officers straightened their uniforms when he approached. He had built his reputation on strict discipline and unwavering control over every aspect of base operations. That Tuesday evening started like any other. Maria was preparing vegetables for the next day when she noticed unusual activity in the dining hall. Officers were gathering around tables, speaking in hushed tones while glancing toward the kitchen. Something important was happening, but the kitchen staff continued their work as if nothing had changed. Around 8 o'clock, the kitchen manager approached Maria with a nervous expression. He explained that General Harrison had specifically requested her presence in his office immediately. The other workers stopped what they were doing, their faces showing concern and curiosity. Being summoned by the general was never a good sign for someone in Maria's position. Maria untied her apron slowly, her mind racing through possible reasons for this summons. She had been careful to maintain her cover, never drawing attention to herself or asking questions that might seem suspicious. As she walked through the corridors toward the administrative building, soldiers stepped aside respectfully, though none of them knew why a simple cook was heading to see their commanding officer. The general's office was located on the 3rd floor, behind heavy oak doors marked with his name and rank. Maria knocked twice and waited for permission to enter. When the deep voice called out, she stepped inside to find General Harrison seated behind an enormous desk covered with maps, documents, and communication devices. General Harrison looked up from his paperwork, his steel-gray eyes studying Maria with the intensity he usually reserved for enemy intelligence reports. He gestured toward a chair across from his desk, but his expression remained stern and unreadable. The office walls were covered with military decorations, photographs from various campaigns, and a large map showing the current regional situation. "Sit down," he commanded, his voice carrying the authority of someone accustomed to immediate compliance. Maria took the offered seat, keeping her posture straight and her hands folded in her lap. She had learned long ago that appearing nervous or defensive could raise unnecessary suspicions. The general opened a thick folder and began reading from what appeared to be an intelligence report. He spoke about recent security concerns, mentioning increased rebel activity in the surrounding areas and the need for enhanced protection measures throughout the base. Maria listened carefully, wondering why this information was being shared with someone supposedly working in the kitchen. "We have reason to believe," General Harrison continued, his eyes never leaving Maria's face, "that enemy agents may have infiltrated our operation. People who appear to be ordinary workers but are actually gathering information for hostile forces." His words hung in the air like a challenge, testing her reaction to this accusation. Maria maintained her calm expression, though her heart rate increased slightly. She had encountered similar situations before and knew that showing any sign of panic would only confirm whatever suspicions the general might have. Instead, she nodded thoughtfully, as if considering how such a serious security breach could affect the kitchen operations. The general then outlined his plan. He wanted Maria to help identify potential threats among the kitchen staff by reporting any suspicious conversations or unusual behavior she might observe. He explained that her position gave her access to gossip and informal discussions that officers might never hear. This assignment would require her to act as an informant while continuing her regular duties. As the general spoke, Maria realized this was both an opportunity and a test. If she was truly just a cook, she should feel honored by his trust and eager to help protect the base. But, if she had other loyalties, this request would put her in an impossible position. Her response would reveal everything he needed to know about her true identity. Maria looked at General Harrison with a slight smile that seemed completely out of place given the tension in the room. She reached into her pocket and pulled out a small leather wallet, opening it to reveal credentials that made the general step backward in shock. The identification card bore official seals and her photograph, but the name and title printed there were nothing like what appeared on her kitchen employment records. "General Harrison," she said quietly, "I believe there has been a misunderstanding about who exactly you have been speaking with." Her voice had changed subtly, carrying an authority that had been completely absent during her months of working in the kitchen. The transformation was so complete that for a moment, the general wondered if he was looking at the same person. The credentials identified her as Colonel Elena Rodriguez, attached to a specialized intelligence unit that operated across multiple military installations. Her security clearance level was actually higher than General Harrison's own, and her authorization codes were current and verified. The general examined the documents carefully, his face showing growing confusion and concern about the implications. Colonel Rodriguez explained that she had been conducting a long-term security assessment of his base, operating under deep cover to evaluate potential vulnerabilities in operational security. Her assignment had come directly from military headquarters, with instructions to maintain her disguise until the investigation was complete. The kitchen position had provided perfect access to observe daily operations without attracting attention. The general slowly returned to his chair, trying to process this unexpected revelation. He asked why he had not been informed about an undercover operation taking place on his base, expressing frustration that such significant security measures had been implemented without his knowledge. His authority had been challenged in a way he never anticipated. Rodriguez explained that the investigation had been initiated following reports of possible intelligence leaks from several bases in the region. Her mission was to determine whether security problems originated from internal sources or external infiltration. Informing local commanders about ongoing investigations could compromise the entire operation if the leaks were coming from within the command structure. As the implications became clear, General Harrison realized that his attempt to recruit her as an informant had actually been a test of his own security procedures. Rodriguez had been observing how he handled suspected security threats, evaluated his decision-making process, and assessed the overall effectiveness of his counterintelligence measures. His performance during their 2 meetings would become part of her final report. Rodriguez continued explaining that her months in the kitchen had revealed several significant security weaknesses that required immediate attention. She had documented casual conversations where classified information was discussed inappropriately, observed patterns of behavior that could be exploited by hostile agents, and identified areas where operational security protocols were being ignored or improperly implemented. The general asked about her findings regarding potential enemy infiltration, the original concern that had led to their meeting. Rodriguez assured him that she had found no evidence of hostile agents operating within the kitchen staff or other base personnel. However, the security vulnerability she had documented could easily be exploited by sophisticated intelligence operations if they remained unaddressed. Rodriguez then shifted the conversation to address the general's approach to the suspected security problems. She pointed out that his method of recruiting untrained personnel as informants could have created more problems than it solved. Encouraging civilian workers to spy on each other would have destroyed trust, reduced operational efficiency, and potentially provided false information that could misdirect legitimate security efforts. The general defended his decisions by explaining the pressure he faced from higher headquarters to identify security threats quickly. Rodriguez acknowledged these pressures but suggested alternative approaches that would have been more effective while maintaining operational security. She offered to include recommendations for improved security procedures in her report. As their discussion continued, Rodriguez revealed specific examples of security weaknesses she had observed. She described how delivery schedules were discussed openly, how personnel movements were predictable, and how communication security was often ignored during routine operations. Each example demonstrated how an actual enemy agent could have gathered valuable intelligence using methods far more sophisticated than simple eavesdropping. The general began to understand that Rodriguez's refusal to become an informant had actually been a professional assessment of his security proposal. Her questions about the assignment had been designed to evaluate whether he understood the potential risks of using untrained personnel for intelligence gathering. Her alternative suggestions had been legitimate recommendations based on extensive experience with counterintelligence operations. Rodriguez also addressed the general's threat to have her dismissed and prosecuted for refusing orders. She explained that her cover assignment included specific protocols for handling situations where local commanders might attempt to compromise her mission. Her refusal had been necessary to maintain operational security and complete her assessment of his command procedures. The general asked how long Rodriguez had been operating undercover and whether other personnel on the base were aware of her true identity. She explained that the operation had been ongoing for 8 months, with only a few key individuals at headquarters knowing about her presence. Even the kitchen manager who had hired her believed she was exactly what she appeared to be. Rodriguez revealed that her background included years of experience with deep cover operations in various environments. She had worked as everything from a factory worker to a college professor, always maintaining perfect cover while gathering intelligence about security vulnerabilities or potential threats. The kitchen assignment had been particularly challenging because of the close relationships that naturally developed among the staff. The conversation took an unexpected turn when Rodriguez asked the general about his own observations regarding base security. She wanted to understand whether he had noticed the same vulnerability she had documented, and whether his concerns about enemy infiltration were based on specific incidents or general paranoia about security threats. General Harrison admitted that his suspicions had been largely based on concerns from headquarters rather than concrete evidence of security problems on his base. He had been under pressure to demonstrate proactive security measures, leading him to look for threats that might not actually exist. This revelation provided important context for Rodriguez's final assessment of the situation. Rodriguez spent the next hour briefing General Harrison on her complete findings, transforming their confrontational meeting into a professional security consultation. She presented detailed documentation of every security weakness she had observed, along with practical recommendations for addressing each vulnerability without disrupting normal operations. Her report included everything from communication procedures to personnel management policies. The general listened carefully as Rodriguez explained how simple changes in routine procedures could dramatically improve operational security. She demonstrated how classified information could be protected through better compartmentalization, how personnel movements could be made less predictable, and how informal communication networks could be managed without destroying the positive working relationships that made the base function effectively. Rodriguez also addressed the broader question of how to handle legitimate security concerns without creating an atmosphere of suspicion and mistrust. She explained that effective counterintelligence required professional training and careful oversight, not amateur surveillance by untrained personnel. Her recommendations included establishing proper channels for reporting genuine security concerns while protecting innocent personnel from false accusations. As they worked through the security assessment together, General Harrison began to appreciate the sophistication of Rodriguez's operation. She had maintained perfect cover for months while conducting a comprehensive evaluation of his entire command structure. Her insights into daily operations were more detailed and accurate than reports from his own security staff, who often missed important details because their presence changed how people behaved. The general asked Rodriguez about her plans for concluding the investigation and returning to her regular duties. She explained that her mission was essentially complete, with only final documentation remaining before she submitted her report to headquarters. However, she suggested that her departure should be handled carefully to avoid raising questions among the kitchen staff who had grown to trust and depend on her. Rodriguez proposed continuing her kitchen duties for another 2 weeks while gradually reducing her hours and preparing other staff members to take over her responsibilities. This approach would provide natural cover for her departure while ensuring that the kitchen operations continued smoothly. She also offered to remain available for consultation as General Harrison implemented her security recommendations. The conversation turned to how this experience had affected both of their perspectives on security operations. Rodriguez acknowledged that working closely with the kitchen staff had reminded her why protecting these dedicated personnel was so important. Their genuine commitment to supporting the mission deserved security measures that protected rather than threatened their well-being and privacy. General Harrison admitted that the experience had taught him valuable lessons about the complexity of effective security management. He realized that his pressure to demonstrate proactive security measures had led him to consider approaches that could have been counterproductive. Rodriguez's professional assessment had provided him with much better alternatives for addressing legitimate security concerns. Rodriguez then revealed that her investigation had actually uncovered one significant security issue that required immediate attention. She had discovered that a civilian contractor working on base communications equipment had been asking inappropriate questions about operational procedures and attempting to access areas beyond his assigned work zones. This individual warranted serious investigation by trained security personnel. The general was relieved to learn that Rodriguez had identified a genuine security concern that his own staff had missed. She provided detailed information about the contractor's activities, including documentation of his movements and copies of questions he had asked various personnel. This intelligence would enable a proper investigation while protecting innocent base personnel from unnecessary scrutiny. As their meeting concluded, Rodriguez and General Harrison established new protocols for ongoing security cooperation. She would provide him with a detailed written report within 1 week, including specific implementation timelines for her recommendations. He committed to reviewing current security procedures with his staff and beginning improvements immediately. Rodriguez also suggested establishing regular communication channels between his base and her unit for future security consultations. She explained that many bases faced similar challenges, and sharing effective solutions could improve security across the entire region. The general agreed to participate in this cooperative approach to security management. The personal dynamics between Rodriguez and General Harrison had changed completely during their extended conversation. What began as a confrontation between a commanding officer and a supposedly insubordinate cook had evolved into a professional collaboration between experienced security specialists. Both had gained new respect for the other's expertise and commitment to effective mission support. Rodriguez prepared to leave the general's office, but, before departing, she offered one final observation about leadership and security. She noted that the most effective commanders were those who could acknowledge when their initial approaches needed adjustment, and who were willing to learn from unexpected sources of expertise. This flexibility was essential for adapting to evolving security challenges. General Harrison thanked Rodriguez for her professional conduct throughout the investigation and apologized for the misunderstanding that had led to their confrontational first meeting. He acknowledged that her refusal to become an informant had actually demonstrated exactly the kind of professional judgment that made her valuable as a security specialist. As Rodriguez returned to the kitchen for her final weeks of cover duty, she reflected on how the investigation had exceeded her original mission parameters. Not only had she completed a comprehensive security assessment, but she had also helped General Harrison develop more effective approaches to security management that would benefit his command long after her departure. The other kitchen workers welcomed her back with relief, having worried about her extended meeting with the general. She reassured them that everything was fine and that she would be continuing her duties as usual. None of them would ever know that their quiet colleague had been conducting one of the most successful undercover security operations in recent military history.